Welcome. My name is Judy Lief, and I'm with you tonight as one of the faculty members of a retreat that was put on called Teachings from the Kingdom of Tibet in partnership with Tricycle Magazine and Two Truths. In October 2016, I traveled with an international group of Buddhist practitioners to a monastery in Bhutan Valley, Bhutan, where I took part in a 5-day practice retreat centered around relationships and purpose. Tricycle's course is based on teachings I presented, along with those of Matthew Ricard, Thupten Rinpoche, and Doshu Port Rinpoche. During tonight's session, there will be an opportunity for Q&A, and I'll briefly explain something about what are called the Lojong slogans, a Tibetan tradition related very much to the troubles that we face nowadays in the world and that have been faced by people through millennium. I'll talk about a few of the slogans, a little bit of the context, and then open it up for some discussion with any questions you might have. And we'll conclude with a brief guided meditation. So welcome. So let me talk a little bit about what Lojong is altogether. Lojong is a Tibetan word. It means mind training. And this particular type of mind training, of course there were many within the Tibetan tradition, is attributed to Atisha Dipankara, who traveled a long way to receive these teachings, traveling across the waters to Sumatra from India and getting a direct transmission of them. The mind training practices include both sitting meditation side, working with the formless quality and the endless potential and openness of our basic state of mind, and they also have been correlated by a Tibetan teacher, Geshe Chokawa, into a series of 7 points or 59 slogans. And the idea of these slogans, or brief pithy statements, are to have ways that we can be brought back to our practice in the midst of all the activities of our lives. In other words, so we could have kind of a seamless quality between what we might call as our formal spiritual practice and in our daily life. The idea is to weave those together so there's no difference really. So all of life becomes an inspiration to awaken our mind, our heart fully. So the practice of the Lojong is based on one, in particular, on rousing what is called bodhicitta. Bodhi means awake, and citta means mind or heart. And the practices, all the Lojong practices, are designed to connect us very deeply to our most tender and open aspect of our heart, mind. Bodhicitta has many interpretations, and one could discuss it endlessly. One way of looking at it is that it's an urge to grow and develop and achieve our potential, our deep-rooted potentials as human beings. You can see this in little children. You can see there's just such curiosity, such interest, and such rapid growth based not on schooling or ambition particularly, but as a natural part of our very being from when we first come out of our mother's womb, or maybe even before, I don't know. So bodhicitta, it is said that all beings have this deep down, this urge to grow and develop. And all beings have the ability to feel the kind of quivering and tender, vulnerable quality of their hearts. All beings have the ability to fall in love, to develop loving kindness, to cultivate compassion, mindfulness, and awareness. So the bodhicitta slogans, the formal practice on the cushion and the day-to-day life practice, are designed to help us liberate or uncover these qualities of mind. They're not so much based on importing anything or trying to manufacture anything. They're very much part of the whole general approach of the Buddhist tradition, which is to engage in an inner journey to see what our nature is deep down, underneath our roles, our responsibilities, the busyness and activities of our lives, to see beneath that what we are about altogether. So I thought I'd focus on a couple of slogans, but I wanted to say a few more general things first. One is, obviously, the notion is that we can do this. We can be more awake in our lives. We can develop more loving kindness and compassion. It really doesn't take that much, but we have to remind ourselves. I think of these slogans as reminders to wake up. We could wake up, but we forget. I also sometimes refer to them as zingers. Zingers in the sense of teachings designed to poke us, and like pop our balloons of deludedness and self-absorption, etc., to kind of wake us up just like that, like a poke. And there we are, we're brought back, we have something to deal with, and it's so beautiful and wonderful to have these kind of teachings. Another way of looking at these 59 slogans is that they are kind of breakdowns or different aspects or different kind of strategies for working with what are called the paramitas or the bodhisattva activities. The idea of the bodhisattva or the bodhisattva warrior is that of a person who is committed to working with others to help them awaken, committed to the path of awakening themselves, but equally or even more committed to doing whatever it takes to help those people we encounter or those situations we are in become more sane, more open, more loving, more kind, more genuine. So the bodhisattva is an ideal, I suppose you could say, that one aspires to emulate. The activities, my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, referred to the activities of the bodhisattva as techniques of non-grasping. How to be engaged in the world, fully connected, relating, not hiding out, not escaping, but without an agenda, without manipulation, without so many solid views and preconceptions, but in a receptive and open way. Techniques of non-grasping. It's, I think, important to realize that the view of the bodhisattva activities, the view of the slogans, and all of these techniques for awakening bodhicitta or loving kindness, the heart of openness and compassion, is that not one that is moralistic or judgmental, not at all supercilious. The view is a kind of a light, open, but continuous dedication to the well-being of the world, to well-being of the people you encounter, to your own well-being. There's a sense of a light touch and a quality of joy and enjoyment. So there's not a kind of a heavy-handed blame and punishment to reward kind of approach. The understanding that underlies Lojong training is that you don't need to be forced or punished, or you don't need to be acting based on fear of getting caught or fear of being beaten. But if you can look within, relax, learn who you are at a deeper level, the outpouring of kindness and compassion and kind of a continual blossoming of the seeds of those qualities will be simple and natural, because that is the kind of an energy waiting to be invited, waiting to be liberated, waiting to be manifested fully, rather than it's fits and starts. We get inspired for a moment, we have a fit of inspiration, do a few nice things, and then, forget about it for a while. So the idea is to kind of open a stream, a bubbling stream of kindness, compassion, and wakefulness that can't help but inspire others and kind of lead others to be inspired in the way we are to work with these kind of practices and this tradition. So you'll be happy to know I'm not going to talk about 59 slogans. I'm just going to touch on a few. So we have time for questions if you want to be asking questions. And so the slogans are arranged, as I said, in 7 points, and they have different emphases explaining the basic qualities of a bodhicitta, the more ultimate or vast qualities of bodhicitta, and the practical expressions of bodhicitta. And there's also lots of guidelines for working with different situations in life. And there are very interesting sets of slogans that give us a way of evaluating our practice. In general, you're told not to evaluate your practice overly much, but this, on the other hand, there are some things one can look for. Obviously, we need little bits of encouragement if we're going to embark on a spiritual path and the rigors that it implies. So it's not so bad to evaluate our practice from time to time. And the very, very fundamental evaluation of practice is the weight of the ego. How self-fixated are you? How much of your time and your worries and your concerns revolve endlessly around I, myself, me, number one, that kind of continually entertaining and amusing and frightening and scary thing that we refer to as ego, which is actually more of a verb than a noun, the kind of protective little shells that we put up, and then we end up, you could say, in a way, building our own prison cell and then trying to redecorate it in various ways and think that's going to work. The slogan practice is based on freedom from that, seeing through that, and trust that is worthwhile, trust that there's something within you that is very, very valuable and does not want to be hidden for that long, does not want to be tucked away, but come front and forward. Your most magnanimous, your most spontaneously kind energies, the idea is those can be liberated. So we're not talking about a bunch of rules to follow. We're not trying to talk about impressing anyone or trying to be good or special in any way. We're just talking about liberating this deep tendency to love and compassion that I think is within you, but we sometimes doubt it, and sometimes it seems kind of squeezed away, hidden under piles of concerns and worries and preoccupations and just the busyness and pressure of life, which is intense. So reminders are not a bad idea. It's so easy to get caught in life and kind of forget about the journey altogether and just kind of go along with our blinders on and occasionally realize time has flown by and many opportunities have been lost. So that is the general opening, so to speak. It's nice that some people are saying hello. Hey, Trevor. I see you. Long time no see. Oh, it's not that long, but a bit long. Ha ha. Joke on your name. Anyway, Let me just talk about a couple of slogans and give you an idea of how they work. And one of them that, in talking about this with some folks, some people say, well, this is a great slogan for now because so many people are kind of fearful and distressed about the kind of acceleration or the piling on of so many scary issues, one on top of another on top of another. It's endless in terms of the problems, these war and mass migration and ecological collapse and crazy power struggles and the gap being so extreme between the very wealthy and everybody else, and so much to worry about. The water, you could worry about the water, you could worry about the air, you could worry about the oceans, you could worry about the nuclear weapons, whatever. There's endless. So a lot of people are pretty discouraged and on one hand, but rising up in lots of powerful ways on the others. If pushed far enough, people rise up, and bodhicitta fuels a reaction to these kind of harmful energies that come up from time to time. You know, life is never easy. Sometimes it seems harder than other times, don't you think? So this slogan is number 11, if you're interested, and it is called, "When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the path of Bodhi. When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the path of Bodhi." And this is really interesting and provocative little statement, and it's kind of the feeling of all the slogans in many ways. Slogan practice is based on dealing with the situation that arises as it arises, and dropping the myth that there's going to be some perfect situation and then you'll be able to relate to your life. Once circumstance A and B and C and everything's lined up just right, and we don't have to deal with this one and that one, this person and that person, just have our own space, and it's just all come into kind of sync, then we might be able to practice, study, and realize. But the nature of the slogans is saying there is no other situation other than this. There is no other ideal situation where it's all going to be easy. You just go to cruise along and practice and get wiser and wiser, just like that. In fact, it almost points to the, you might say, counterintuitive notion that, but I think it certainly speaks true in my experience, is that when you learn the most is sometimes when it's toughest, when we're most challenged, when we're thrown off course, when our expectations suddenly collapse and we have this little opening, this little gap, this little bit of uncertainty or open ground. It also challenges, what do we do? What do you do with all the mishaps, with all the challenges, and with all the kind of negativity and violence and greed and the kind of forces of ignorance, where people are making decisions based on who knows what. They're going to make things up out of thin air and then they react to them. And we do that too. And that's something that's being challenged to look at. Obviously, it's not going to work to wait till everything's smooth. And obviously, that sense of the split between workable and unworkable is not all that useful. The Mahayana view, the slogans come from a tradition called the wide path, the open path, the path in which everyone can be invited, is that the problems, one way Trungpa Rinpoche put it as, The bad news is the good news from some perspective. The bad news is the good news. Bad news wakes us up. In some ways, I think some of the upset in the recent months, seems like century, but months, is a profound wake-up call, and that we've been coasting along in so many ways with our little creature comforts and not looking beyond that. So slogans are not based on covering anything up, saying the world is hard. There are actual harmful, evil things happening that have to be stopped, that have to be, exposed. But the slogan isn't just about, well, we should go try to fix everything, because we're not going to. We have to be realistic what each person particularly can do. But it's whatever arises, however annoying or challenging, can you see within that a seed of awakening? Does it have a message for you? Does it provoke a deeper thinking about this or that? Can we transform a usual approach, at least my usual approach, is just sort of mutter and moan about the state of things and just, watch a lot of news until I want to shoot myself. Not the most effective in any way. But can we see, well, what is this pointing to about you and about the human condition and about different possible responses? And how do you find within you your particular response and drop the pain of only thinking about stuff you cannot do, what you cannot do, and trying to find some seed of something you can do. A very small, genuine response coming from your own personal situation is far more powerful than a lot of speculations on big scale heroic actions that you imagine you might do someday, but you never do. So there's also that. There's a sense of immediate, listen to what the world is telling you and take it to heart and do something. It's very straightforward. So that's one slogan. I just wanted to touch on a couple of them. So there's so many. I love them all, actually. and if you read through them, if you recite them, if you study them, and as the Tibetans would say, put them in your mind stream, they will rattle around in there and they will pop up, and almost as like they'll catch you up short, as though you're like a dog that's running really fast and it goes, the leash catches it. As the ego gets geared up and we get all in a knot, we get tighter and tighter and more pissed off and freaked out. It's almost we come running around like crazy people, and then something jerks us back and saying, what is actually going on right now in your life, and how are you going to respond to it? And what is the message? What are you learning? Because when it says transform mishaps into the path of Bodhi, there's a sense of bringing us back to being a practitioner on the path. I don't care whether you call yourself Buddhist or not, but having a sense of being on a journey that has some meaning and maintaining the attitude of a student who is a learner. It's not a complainer, not always a fixer, not always a speculator, but having a sense of not feeling as though the world is attacking you personally, making you miserable, but getting a grip and saying, okay, these things are happening. I can learn from that. I can learn from everything. And the notion of Maha, or wide and open, is that we can learn from everything. Sometimes people use the phrase, when the student is ready, a teacher will come. In some ways, if you're ready, there are teachers everywhere. The path of Bodhi is very, very wide. And they say it's a wide path. That sounds great, it's roomy, but it really means there's no limit at all. The path has no edges, and that means there is no escape. When you take the attitude of slogan practice, of focusing on training your mind, arousing bodhicitta, or loving kindness. There's no end to it. There's no end to the possibility, but there's also no escape route, nowhere else to work on this, no one else to do it other than you. And there you are. Tremendous opportunity, a certain kind of interesting combination of vastness and claustrophobia. Everywhere you turn, there's usually a mishap of some sort, and there's a way of transforming that into the path of Bodhi. So I'll touch on two more, so there's time for dialogue if you want. I just chose three, somewhat random. The second one I chose is number 13. It's called, well, hello, hello. I see some other people. Nice to see you. This is called Be Grateful to Everyone. Be grateful to everyone. And that has a number of different levels. All the slogans do. They have a kind of an ordinary level, and then when you study them over time, they have layers and layers of depth. They apply to daily life. They apply to how we approach our spiritual practice, our relationships, and pretty much everything else. This one, very simple level, is, of course, it's good to be grateful. And I think, in general, our Western or contemporary sophisticated societies have lost some of the power of gratitude. And there's such pressure for more and more and more. Be more successful, do more things, be more prominent, have more people in your Facebook list and your LinkedIn and all that. There's so much kind of functionality and achievement orientation and kind of fascination with the latest, newest thing. And be grateful to everyone, to begin with, is just to have gratitude at all. I mean, how often, it's amazing that we have this life, that we find ourselves experiencing, being in a body with mind, emotions, history, relationships, just coming out of nowhere. Here we are in the middle of a life. We just show up. And the more you think about it, the more wonderful it is. It should never forget, we've been given this, we have this life. Maybe lots of issues with it. Maybe often feels really crappy sometimes. Nonetheless, we have this life. It's amazing. And it's amazing just any way you look, whether you're looking at human ingenuity, whether you're looking at the natural world, or even thinking about being on a planet in the middle of a solar system in the vastness of space. It's amazing. And it's worthy of gratitude that we could have this kind of experience at all. Many, many more traditional cultures make a point of practicing gratitude every day. Every day we wake up, we're grateful to have a day. And every night when we go to bed, we're grateful we've been through another day with whatever it was composed of. But the tricky thing, the cool thing in this be grateful to everyone, is the everyone. They can't be serious, can they? Be grateful to. There are many, many people we tend not to feel spontaneously very grateful to. So this slogan has this quality of kind of stretching our notion of gratitude. We're grateful for warm and fuzzy things, but we're not so grateful for itchy, scratchy things. We're grateful for cute things, but not ugly things. We're grateful for things that feed our sense of specialness, and we're not very ungrateful usually for things that deflect attention away from us, or that are not our preference even. Can we be grateful when we're for the bad food that we're served? Can we be grateful for the rude waiter? Can we be grateful for the politicians on the other side, whatever that is, who are basically seem crazy and disagree and don't have any idea what they're doing. Can we be grateful to them? Can we be grateful to all the challenges of life, hardships? And this doesn't mean namby-pamby, like, oh, it's so great, everything's so bad, that was wonderful. But there is a sense of getting over, always evaluating everything that comes up, every situation, whether it's directly our experience or we read about it or hear about it or whatnot, always directing, it's always kind of continually coming back to me, do I like it? Is it good for me? Is it, do I agree with it? Is it me? So being grateful is also getting a little beyond the me habit and judging everyone and everything by that yardstick. If they look like me, that's good. If they don't, that's bad. If they agree with me, that's good. If they don't, that's bad. Blah, 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 blah. So being grateful for everyone. Everyone has the sense of the heart of the Bodhisattva, the magnanimity, the vast mind of the Bodhisattva. There's room for everyone. The difficult ones as well as the good ones. The saints as well as the sinners, the benevolent people and the messed up ones. There's room for them all. There's no boundaries where you exclude. You don't exclude parts of yourself. You don't exclude other people. You don't exclude other beings. That's the notion, which is very radical. So I'm not saying immediately you go out and say thank you to everyone you meet, but there is a sense of, noticing where your mind stops. What you include and what you exclude. Why do you exclude it? Then what does that mean? Does that make you more secure that you have your little group that all agrees with you and then you don't have to deal with anything else? What kind of a vast mind of bodhicitta is that? What is the love really about? And it should be clear, this is not excusing anybody. It's not saying it doesn't matter, whether you do harmful or beneficial. No, it's not about that. It's not excusing anything and saying, okay, well, everything's the same, everything's included, so who cares? That kind of nihilistic thing. No, but it's trying to look at things from a slightly different angle, where you're not always at the center ruler or measuring stick for every little thing. Everything, every thought, every emotion, every mood, impulse, we do the same thing, So you say, okay, but just experience. You don't need to add on. You don't need to measure everything in that way. So that's a little bit of sense of that slogan. Number 13, be grateful to everyone. And that's part of the section on evaluation of mind training. One way of judging your practice, how grateful are you? Pretty straightforward. And another, the third slogan I thought I'd at least touch on is number 21, if you're interested, numbers. And that goes, always maintain only a joyful mind. Always maintain only a joyful mind. One of the characteristics of the Mahayana, or entry into Mahayana, is said to be accessing some quality of joy. Joy that's not dependent on circumstances, being good. A more kind of deep-rooted, what you could say, well-being or joy. And you see in the iconography and pictures of the great bodhisattvas, many of them are smiling. They're well-dressed. They're beautiful. There's a sense of joy and ease and kind of a radiation of love and compassion. So sometimes I think this slogan is pivotal in some ways for kind of making a distinction between the virtues or the activities of the bodhisattva from simple moralistic do-gooderism. There's no sense of guilt trying to do good things to assuage our guilt. There's no sense of embarrassment about whatever your circumstances might be. You're born into a wealthy family, you're born into a poor family, a loving family, or a broken family, or whatnot. There's no embarrassment either way of a privilege or lack of privilege. There's a sense of some fundamental joyfulness of mind. And it's not that, oh, I got an ice cream cone, now I feel great. No, it's all, I finished eating it and now I feel bad. But there's a kind of a joy that's maintained. It's always maintained. Always maintained quality of joy. Another way of looking at this slogan might be helpful is it says seeing the humor in everything, seeing through the pretense, seeing through the heavy-handedness, and so how quick we are to judge ourselves and everyone else, and how much we dwell in our thinking on everything that's wrong, and we so seldom turn our attention to the amazing, joyful aspects of life. Sure, there's lots of things we need to do, but I think sometimes people think that if you're really serious, if you really pay any attention to all the incredibly big challenges facing this world, that it'd be like wrong to feel any joy or humor or lightness. But the kind of perspective or the teachings of the Mahayana Bodhisattva path says, no, it's wrong to shut down that quality of life. Now, it doesn't mean it's not a this-that world where you're either a serious person who really cares about, the challenges in politics and the environment and, the injustice and all that kind of stuff. It does not at all mean that you're just kind of happy-go-lucky and you're just kind of la-di-da. But there's a sense of coming from a point of happiness, a point of lightness, and it cuts through the sense of when people get really engaged, often they get tighter. You can get tighter and tighter and tighter and more aggressive, even in an idealistic cause. And I've seen it happen over and over again. You care so much, you shut down your sense of simple human delight, and you grit your teeth and you go forward to solve some big issue, and you get more and more angry, more and more caught in your own drama of solving the problem, and the almost beyond the problem itself. It becomes a kind of a feeder to a very kind of icky or sticky version of ego identity. So it's worth pondering. All these slogans are worth contemplating and trying to figure out, well, is it possible? Is it possible to be really engaged and really deeply committed to helping and the spheres in which you can without just getting more and more depressed and uptight and fearful and or discouraged, etc. Is it possible to join these qualities which we often separate? Seriousness versus pleasure. But joy is different than that. Joy in action. Joy when people do some positive thing. There's a quality of joy. It's just the way it is. So, and that's good. So exploring this notion, always maintain only a joyful mind is this particular slogan. So anyway, could go on and on, but you'll be happy to know I won't. But I wanted to allow a sense for people to enter into questions or have stories or whatever I'm not quite sure if do other people see what's typed in? I don't know. I haven't done this format before, I'm sorry. But I could read what's coming so far since I'm not sure. Um, One person just said hello, Trevor Long. It has been a long time, Trevor. Nice to see you. And someone, Eve Minson, made a comment just saying hello. These reminders are good. Shuling Luo, nice to see you again. Always speaking to my heart and mind, deep vow. So that's what's come in so far. And I'd like to allow a little time, and if anyone wants to jump in, you could bring up your own slogan, or you could just introduce yourself or say hello. Well, it's after a moment of silence. Someone. Irina Anderson. Hi, Irina. Ina's thanking me, saying hello. These are all very sweet comments. Doesn't even have any questions. It's very nice. Well, hi, Alma, another person. I have to say, I'll just be very personal since there seems to be, little gaps, and feel free to interrupt with your questions if you would like. But this slogan practice, all 59, and the kind of teachings around them, I basically come back to over and over and over again. Has come back to them so many times that my book is falling apart. See? I had to tape it all together. There are many good books on slogan practice, and I like the fact that they're so, they are so multi-layered. And from just a simple-minded, which often is what I most need, the most simple-minded, but then when they kind of deepen each time I come back to them, and I think about, for instance, even these slogans, you could apply it to any single session of sitting meditation. You could apply it to so many different interactions and contexts. Now there's a few more. Someone says, I like number 59, slogan number 59, don't expect applause. That's the very last slogan, of the 59. And boy, that one digs deep in a lot of ways. Sometimes, I have a grandchild. I have 3 grandchildren. But when you observe children when they're with their mothers at a playground, they climb up the slide and they look over their shoulder. Hey, Mommy, look at me, look at me. And they go down and do something else. Mommy, look at me, look at me. And I think we're often like that. We expect to be acknowledged. We want to be acknowledged, and that's very sweet and tender, but it can really be an obstacle. And to look at your motivation and when you do things, what are your expectations? And how does that affect what you do? And if you don't get applause, then what do? You get pissed off? Do you feel depressed or like self-pitying? Oh my God, I did this great thing and no one noticed. So the Bodhisattva has that humor and cleanness. They just do things without expecting much of anything. Anyway, let's see if there's some other questions. Oh, there was a question, how to incorporate the slogans as part of one's meditation practice. Well, there's 2 ways. One is that any of these can apply. We expect applause in our sitting practice. We often don't feel very grateful. We often don't feel all that joyful. We have a lot to work with that way. But there are formal, the first 6 slogans are all excellent sitting meditation instruction. And the quality of that instruction is to kind of break down the striving energy in sitting practice and the heavy-handed notion that we sometimes have, which maybe comes from the self-improvement mentality, where we just, decide I'm going to, learn 10 things in the next 10 days, or I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next 2 months, or that kind of striving thing. And they have a quality, like, for instance, one of my favorite slogans in terms of sitting practice is regard all dharmas as dreams. And that's one of the very first, actually one of the very early slogans directly about sitting practice. In this case, dharmas means phenomena, what you experience, recognizing the dreamlike nature of experience. And you could say, thinking opposite-wise, which I often do, is not solidifying. See how much we solidify things and try to encapsulate things, often within a fairly narrow conceptual understanding, and freeze experience. But seeing dharmas as dreams, we see many more openings and the fluidity of things and the ungraspable quality, and get right down to it, the ungraspable quality of life. And seeing that the grasping, the temptation to grasp and confine and define can often deaden the energies of a more natural and free way of going about things. So I have to look at the questions again. Chilling again. Now there's a question about when people get depressed, they detach themselves. Are there any suggestions? Well, it depends on if you're suggesting which side you're saying. I mean, obviously you're dealing with someone who's in that situation. The usual suggestion it would be just to be kind, be a reliable friend. If you're the one that's feeling depressed and detached, well, certainly the regard all dharmas as dreams is relevant. But there's a quality of being kind and interested in the experience itself. And there have been people with deep depressions who've written about the experience of that with a great deal of interest. And you could say almost like viewing the depression as a teacher in the same way that slogan we talked about. It's a way of thinking, when the world is filled with evil, transform it. Is there a way of transforming that experience by taking an interest in exploring it? And that may or may not be possible. So there's a quality of seeking for help when one needs help. Finding some reliable friend as possible to help when times are tougher. But I think most times when we feel really bad, somehow our attitude of mind tends to extend that and not see the flowing and the changing moment by moment quality of experience. Even the heaviest experiences are constantly changing and are not ever as solid as we think. So that's all I could come up with on that. Okay, so I think I wanted to thank you for coming, and I wanted to do a little bit of a short practice together. and then I'll just have a closing remark, and then it'll be the end of our hour. I hope you're enjoying the class altogether. It was really quite a treat to be in Bhutan with these other wonderful teachers in my favorite part of Bhutan, in Bhutan, at this Lojong monastery, which is just gorgeous. I hope you have a chance to travel there sometime yourself, and whatever your situation might be. So let's just take a moment to assume a comfortable posture and just try to relax and settle your mind. Breathe simply and naturally. And explore for a moment, push your attention on the center of your chest and just think of the quality of something that brings out tenderness within you, something that really touches you, someone or some experience. It creates a kind of a pressure and a sad, beautifully sad and tender quality right in your core. Almost a poignant quality. It's hard to just say, is it painful, poignant, beautiful, and warm. Quality of warmth and pressure and tenderness. Just reflect on your life a little bit, where you are in your life. At a certain age, in a certain situation, with challenges, and with loves and hopes and aspirations, and regrets and failures, challenges, unexpected opportunities, unexpected losses. Just try to touch in with just the beauty and the tenderness and the challenge of the human life, human condition. And spend a moment just noticing the effect of worry, busyness, pressure, ambition, the many ways we can have resentments, chips on our shoulders. It's almost you can see that little tender, like a little tender bird's egg or something like that, and above it the piles of concerns and preoccupations and worries and fears. And I think the best way to look at slogan practice and this whole thing is to touch in, to come back to that tender little thing that's always kind of quivering in there. So much yearning to get out and to flourish. And that's what the slogan practice and meditation in some ways is designed to do, to let that leak out and begin to color and soften the harshness and the many challenges and experiences that just we have to deal with in life as human life and the particular challenges of the day. So I hope you explore this topic further. I know some of you have explored it quite a lot already. And There's many good books on slogans, and there's also a blog that I have that goes through slogan a day kind of thing. Many things to study. And I guess you can also enroll in Tricycle's online course, which you can do by visiting learn.tricycle.org. So just a little plug for that if you want to be a slogan groupie. It's not a bad thing to do. And there's one question that I didn't get to, I probably should touch on. And I think it's a very good, going further with the depression discussion, is that sometimes you need help in the sense of the pharmaceuticals can really help in depression. So one shouldn't discount that as, write that off. So anyway, I would like to thank all of you. And now it's time to sign off from my little office in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm going to go have dinner. I hope you do too. Have a good time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.